Hello, everybody, to our webinar today, Supercharge Your Content Marketing and how to leverage AI and automation for real-time inspiration. So what we've prepared for you, a quick overview on the agenda is first we will talk a little bit about why we actually came up with the topic of food content. Obviously, it was related to a client project, but it's really interesting how much food content and recipes are actually driving audiences and brands. So we'll give you a bit of context about this. Then we will take a look at the challenges of creating and publishing great food-related content to drive brand engagement. Again, so that you understand a bit about what the challenge is for our clients and how we actually help them. We will then show you how we use AI and automation to create smart content. And then at the end, you're going to see the full case study and the results from it. So, recipes and food trends discovery for ongoing content creation. And it's really impressive if you take a look at the food content and why food content matters so much. If you take a look at food, food is obviously one of the most universal things that we share across countries and cultures and nations. And it also appeals to a wide or diverse audiences. So no matter whom you actually like to target with food content and recipes, you're getting pretty close to your target group because no matter if it's students or couples or kids and families or foodies itself or vegans, vegetarians, seniors, travelers, adventurers, people with specific diet needs or office workers, they're all united by food and by recipes. And it's not just the side of the audience, but it's also the side actually of the brands and the companies on the other side. So there is like a huge ecosystem and an industry that's heavily leveraging the food content. So we can talk about supermarkets, food brands itself, appliance manufacturers, again, hobby cooks, media companies, influencers, beverage brands, health and wellness, hospitality and tourism. So there's really like on both sides from supply and demand, there is like there are huge audiences and they're all united by the food content and the recipes. We also had a quick look at the numbers and you can see that 250 million times per month, the hashtag food is used on Instagram, just to give you a bit of a feeling of how much content is there created on a monthly basis. If you take a look at YouTube, the food content that has been generated on YouTube exceeds more than 51 billion pieces of content. So it's really massive. And what's also super interesting that 39% of Instagram users explore food content via a social media platform, and 27% of those then also share the food content, like meaning the videos or the photos. So food is something that people are interested in. Food is something that companies are interested in, and food is something that people really like to watch and to share with their friends and family. And another study shows that Gen Z is actually driving a bit of a shift in the food content, meaning that they are mainly using social media to discover new food trends and shopping lists for their grocery shopping, mainly then also online. Yeah. So 55% of Gen Z is actually tapping into social media content. And they're, of course, like the new interesting and hyped up recipes and dishes to get inspired for food and recipes that they can then later buy or cook at home for themselves. So the challenge with the whole thing is that obviously it's a bit hard to break through the clutter then and address the right consumption behavior and needs of the audiences. Because similar, like if you're standing in a supermarket aisle and you take a look to the left side and you take a look to the right side, similar it actually is also when it comes like to food related content or nowadays in general when it comes to content. It's a pretty saturated market and it becomes even more and more challenging for companies to be relevant when it comes like to the latest trends, but in general also to stand out. One thing that we see here over and over again is that one of the very basic but important factors is the frequency. Yeah. So if you see here an example chart, is like the frequency of how often you post. In this case, you see 5 different companies that are blurred out on Instagram. In that category is like, obviously, the more you post stuff, the more engagement you're actually driving. And if you're not filling up your recommended posting frequency, then you're already missing out and the opportunities that you should actually have. I mean, the second thing is then talking about the content that you're sharing, but at least you should fill up your slots before that, and then dive further into how you can differentiate your content. The reason why this is not happening often is because there is not enough time for teams to do it. They just have like limited resources to do it. The costs are high because they are trying to farm it out. And then they always have the problem that maybe somebody is missing or on holiday, and then things just don't get done. What can actually help with that so that you're always up to date, so that you always have enough content, and that you also don't rely on individual people, is actually that you start creating smart content, and you try to set up like a complete system that gives you inspiration for content and then allows you to produce content on an ongoing basis, always being relevant to what people are looking for at the moment, and then having automated workflows that produce the content for you so that you're not reliable, not relying on a single person or a team anymore. And when we then shift over to the topic of AI and automation, it can actually help us to reduce the time that we need from information to action and make sure that businesses are more responsive and more effective. As we said, we are now looking, especially from the perspective of generating like food content and in as the driving force recipes, but it can be applied to, of course, all kind of other different content that we're looking for. What you always see is that there is on the left side, you see there is always some kind of input that's needed. So some information that you want to pull in, meaning like insights that you gather learnings and do this in a faster and a better way. So it's information that an organization pulls in on an ongoing basis. Then there are internal processes, meaning you take information, you're processing information, you do some analysis, you do some production, you do some learnings from it. And then there is the content that's going to be the output. So something that you're going to push out, and then you're trying to take the learnings into action and do everything there faster and better. And you push out content on a regular basis so that actually people can then discover your offers and your services. So if we take a look at what we've done at the case study to get even more specific and granular, then to give you a bit of a background, what we did is for one of our clients in the food industry, we actually created an AI and automation driven process, which helps them to continuously monitor the demand and supply content of the relevant target groups that they have. It allows them to create trending social media worthy meal plans for a whole week. And it allows them to regularly push content out to their relevant target groups and engage them in social media. So they have a better understanding of what people are looking for. They can create the content in different forms and interesting ways, and then they can use the content to actually communicating it out to their target groups again. When we go through the steps of like input, processing, and output, then when it comes to the input, what we set up is actually a system that allows them to monitor, on the one hand, supply trends, and on the other hand, demand trends. So supply trends is something that is like more regularly used by brands, which is basically just giving basically just looking of what are the trending hashtags, the trending recipes, and everything else that's trending at the moment. So where there's like a huge demand in searches, and there is a huge supply already there. So that is like the regular stuff that a lot of brands are doing. What what we set up, what not a lot of brands are doing, is actually looking into demand trends. And demand trends in this case are actually food and recipe content that is searched for. So there is a search volume, but there is basically no supply there. So it's really, to say, like the beginning of an upcoming trend. While the other one is like the big wave that everybody is riding already. But then there is like the smaller wave that's like about the thing that's coming next, where there is a big demand already from client side, but there is not enough supply from creator side or from brand side. And we can do this with Instagram and we can do this with TikTok to be even more specific. But by combining supply trends and demand trends, we make sure that we are always up to date and we always know what is like the current hot thing. And we have a good view of what's the next hot thing that will become even bigger in the future. Because once there is enough demand, automatically there will be supply by creators and by brands. And of course, with the brands, we're helping our client that his business is one of the first ones. When it comes to the processing, and now I'm talking about the four bubbles that you actually see here, a lot is about fast and reliable content creation. So if we take a look at steps that are necessary, what we have to do in terms of the processing, then it's like once we set up the automated connection, then we still need to scrape the data. We need to analyze it. We then need to take a look at the recipes and we need to create shopping lists. In addition to this, we are creating shooting boards already for creative teams. Then we're actually preparing all the assets that are needed, meaning also like shooting the content. And then it goes over to the next stage, the output. And what we've set up is for the 4 steps, always like a semi-automated process that involves AI, that is of course automated, but it always gives the chance of like a human check and human intervention to check like, is the data that we are getting right? Are the recipes in the shopping lists right? Do this make sense? Do the shooting boards make sense before we create the content? And then of course the content creation is currently anyway done by a creative team that is supported with AI, but it's mainly done by human beings. But that's also fine because we save so much time basically before and afterwards. And then when it comes to the output, like the smart sharing, what we're doing is then again, understanding that there are, as we said before, always limitations on client side when it comes to the frequency of social media content that they can create, that they can post, because they're limited resources and everything else. So this is why we actually go beyond of just supplying clients then with trends or with data, but actually helping them to create the content and out of the content, helping them to create the social media posts, because ultimately we need the content in the social media posts to fulfill the upcoming demand trends and actually be where people are looking for recipes and inspiration and where they're taking the decision of what they're going to cook next and where they're going to buy the product. So this is why we help them with the social media and other content generation that's done based on the information that we have, the recipes, the shopping lists, the shooting boards, and then we help them with targeted publishing of the different social media channels. Again, also this is done automatically so that you're not relying on individual people anymore, and it's no problem in case somebody is on holiday or somebody is getting sick, because there is like a system that's actually running and there is a systematic approach to it. If we take a look a bit more into detail, so how we collect all the data. So again, as we said, we're looking into social media posts on the one hand when it comes to the supply trends. Here very much, we collect all the individual posts. You see it here, they're saved in a database. For each social media post, we create more than 100 data points. The data points include all kinds of information, so we know exactly when it got published, like what date, what time. We know, of course, the caption. We have the image or the images that are related to it. We have the video when it's a video. We have the amount of likes, the comments, the play count, the view count, the video duration, hashtags, mentions. We know which music is used, which creators they're using. So there is really like a vast amount of data that is actually at our hands and fingertips that we can use then also to identify patterns. Since it's always very interesting for people once we identify patterns that they get a better understanding by themselves, we also provide our client with an interface so that it's easy for the whole team that they can access all the information that they are seeing there. So it's automatically generated data dashboard in the interface that clients can organize by themselves depending on what they're actually looking for. If they want to dive deeper into individual trends, hashtags, if they want to see the most popular stuff, they can filter it according to different criterias that we are also set up for them. So it's really easy for them to filter, rank, view, and splice and dice the data so that you can get manually active. Again, when it comes to the data and the food content, and it's one example, it's really interesting when it comes to the processing step and the output possibilities, because in terms of processing, when we get all of the data together, there are like different ways how we can splice and dice the data. As we said, so when we're sitting suddenly on a huge amount of social media posts that are covering food trends and recipes, we can splice them thematically, like meaning, okay, we're now looking for comfort food, yeah, because we see comfort food is getting interesting. Or we can filter food basically on different ingredients, meaning your ingredients. So if you are actually a different client and you're like a beer brand, then we can filter for all trending foods that actually include beer. Or if you're a dairy producer, then we can look for different dairy products. We can also filter the content lifestyle based, meaning like if you're a vegan brand, then we can look for this. If you're actually a brand that wants to support mothers, make their lives easier, and you're looking for easy recipes that you can cook with your kids, it's also possible to do that. We can also filter, of course, for specific brands that are used when it becomes to more targeted stuff. Of course, it's possible to look at the content also from a seasonal perspective, or again, just looking for stuff that's like very popular at the moment, hot and trending. So it allows us to filter the content that we are actually scraping in many different ways. And so we can fulfill a lot of different like usage situations. And at the same time, when it comes to the outputs, we're also able to create a couple of different creative formats, meaning like if it's social media posts, or if it's videos that we can create, or if it's images that we can create, or if it's storyboards that we can create. So there are also multiple options of how we then can use the data and work further with the data and generate the actual content. To get a bit more specific, so one of the things that we did here is actually we helped the client to come up with a weekly recipe, meaning like things that people can cook every day, very simple, like a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner option. And we put together like then based on the data for each day, like a different theme, as you can see with the examples here. So cozy and comforting, vibrant and shareable, bold and flavorful. So those are all specific themes that we're using, where within the theme, we have the matching recipes. And one of the things that we wanted to do in the beginning is we said we just wanted to take the stuff that's currently like generating most of the likes. So then we basically have, based on the theme, we have like a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner that currently has most likes within that theme. And that actually allows the client to say and take a look at like, okay, on day one, we actually have a recipe option that it combined has like 500,000 likes, and we can see how these recipes and then the content of these recipes performs in this case, like compared to day number 3, that's vibrant and shareable, that only has 285,000 likes all combined. So that is like one of the things that you can then actually do when you have access to all of the data, and you can run different experiments. And what we also do is, based on the recipes that we identify or the food trends, we then create full recipes for each of the dishes that's included in the days. So even though it is not in the video, we can actually generate the full recipe that is needed for the end customer to then cook the recipe again. It has the different steps, it has the ingredients and everything that you actually need, some additional tips for it. So it's really like added value coming on top of the identified trends that we are seeing. And one other example is, of course, you can see here like a meal plan that we're going to generate. So you can get like the full overview for the week, which is super handy for them. But what is also possible is that we actually generate shooting boards. So then when it comes to the content creation of saying like, okay, we don't want to just publish the recipes or just publish images of it, we can then actually support the client with additional shooting boards that can go directly to the creative teams, and they know the recipe, they know what they need to do, and then they even have a shooting board and they know which scenes they need to shoot. The results, just quickly looking into this, is basically from just having people that need to browse through social media endlessly, that try to somehow find stuff by going through the different accounts, which of course are too many accounts that you could actually cover as a human being, then to finding some way where they store all the content and how they can actually analyze it and identify patterns, to then a process where manually they would write stuff, which of course, as we said, takes quite some time, to a process that you saw before that basically is on top, which was before we started, and to a process then that uses AI and automation, which you see on the bottom of it. And again, running through the basic steps that had to be done, which were data collection, data sorting, data analysis, content preparation, content publishing. We helped the client to come from a process that took them 17 hours to actually do that. And with the help of AI and automation, we managed to break it down to 85 minutes. So it's again a reduction of 90% or 91% of the process and the time that's needed for them. And that helps them actually to be way faster than before. It frees up 15 hours of their time to actually do different things. We also saw that it increased the consumption by the audience. It allows us to track now 10 times more sources than before. We are more up to date because running the process from the initiating till we're actually done, it only takes 85 minutes. So we're way faster. Everybody has access to the data points. They can react way faster to social media. They get ongoing inspiration for the content marketing, and they also get new cross-selling opportunities, because besides the recipes that I showed you for the individual days or from the individual weeks, we can also create combined shopping lists for all the different recipes or days that you actually wanted to cook, which is an additional service for the customer and can create additional opportunities for somebody to actually buy the stuff already online. If you find this interesting, and as we said, we don't think it's about recipes, we think it's about content in general, and you're interested in that and also interested in running a proof of concept, we have a couple of other ideas which we actually wanted to roll out with different clients. So if you're interested in that, we're very much looking for additional partners. We have some great ideas for prototypes and minimal viable products. And if you have some interest, then please feel free to reach out to us so that we can eventually run a proof of concept together. And that's it. Thank you. Bye bye.